Cedra, thank you. Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Honourable Chair, Deputy Governor, guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, a very good morning. I'm conscious on the second day of any conference, it's a moment that you start to get into the really complicated issues and the detail and the meat of a subject, and I've sensed that as I've heard the preceding speakers this morning. I'm also very conscious that in a moment we're about to welcome a royal guest to this event, and having experienced a little bit in the British High Commission about royal visitors to Pakistan in the last month, I know that timekeeping is absolutely critical. So I will keep my remarks very short at the end of this morning's session. But I really just wanted to use this opportunity to pay tribute, as Cedra just mentioned, to the various partnerships that we enjoy as the UK with the different individuals and institutions represented here this morning, whether it's the government of Pakistan, the State Bank, the Board of Revenue, and others, which is really critical to our shared agenda of moving this country into a brighter future. And of course, the reasons that bring the UK and Pakistan together in a very particular and special kind of relationship are myriad, whether it's the nearly 1.5 million people in the United Kingdom who can trace their heritage back to Pakistan, whether it's the cultural ties between us and education and sport, or of course trade and investment. And the UK is the second largest export market for Pakistan, and the second largest source of investment into this country. And it's been a particular pleasure for me during my nearly 3 years serving here in Pakistan to see people in different walks of British life now in some of the most senior and important public positions in the UK of Pakistani origin. I think a great richness and diversity that they've brought to British society. But of course, when I talk about a shared agenda, it's the economy that is absolutely central to that, and it is the shape of Pakistan's economy and the growth trajectory which will determine the Pakistan of the future. The United Kingdom, through the High Commission, through the Department of International Development, worked with the World Bank and with the ADBI and others earlier this year on what I think was a seminal report about the Pakistan of 100 in 2047 and all the different things across the economy and society that will need to come together to create the kind of flourishing, energetic, diverse, wealthier society that we all wish to see. I pay tribute to the work that the government and the different public agencies have taken in recent years on that path, including difficult choices around the IMF programme that the government has entered into, and of course, as the Minister was describing, the progress that has been made and was announced recently with the visit of the President of the World Bank on the ease of doing business ratings for Pakistan. And the work of strengthening Pakistan's financial sector and growing small and medium enterprises is of course critical. You've heard a bit about some of the areas that the UK is involved in through our development assistance, through the State Bank with the Financial Inclusion Programme, and of course through the work of Karandaaz. And you heard some of the numbers which we represent the results from that, including very impressive figures about the number of new jobs created across this country. But I think we also have to be honest about the scale of the task and the challenges. And again, you've heard a little bit about that from previous speakers. Any kind of reform to an economy is difficult. People have talked about an ecosystem within which SMEs operate. Now, of course, one part of that ecosystem, and a critical part, is access to finance in new and innovative ways, which allow entrepreneurs and businesses to grow. But it's not the only part. It's also about the tax regime, as has been described to you. It's about the regulatory environment and bureaucratic barriers to the growth of businesses. And critically, it's about human capital. It's about education, skills, bringing new young people, women into the workforce in a way that they can contribute their full to society. And achieving those kind of things is difficult because it involves difficult choices and challenges. There will always be people who will say that taxing that particular sector of the economy or opening up that particular sector of the economy through deregulation is not a good thing to do for different reasons. But ultimately, we need to create an environment in Pakistan where the economy is more open, more conducive to the growth of entrepreneurship and bringing new forces into economic growth. And I think it's also worth recognizing in that context some of the regional challenges, international challenges that are linked to the growth of the financial sector and to the economy. Pakistan at the moment is in an ongoing process with the International Financial Action Task Force over its action plan to address various aspects of the financial sector and safeguard against the risk of terrorist financing creeping into different parts of the financial system. Those are critical commitments, and I welcome the work that the Minister and others have made in advancing that agenda. But it is essential that those steps can be taken alongside the broader reforms to the business and economic environment that can move this country forward. And you have the commitment of the United Kingdom, and I think of others in the international community, in supporting that objective. So let me conclude there. As I say, it is fantastic to celebrate the partnerships that we enjoy as the United Kingdom with different sectors of this country in supporting the growth of finance and small and medium enterprises, and the contribution that those can make to the wider economy and our shared objectives. But at the same time, I think we all recognise that it's not an easy path, and as I say, the second day of a conference is the moment to get into some of the more difficult detail of that. But it's a path that you will have the full support of the United Kingdom in the years ahead. So many thanks, and I look forward to an ongoing working partnership together. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for once again reiterating the important partnerships and the shared agenda. Of course, there's a long way to go, and as the media has been covering it, thank you once again for pointing out to the royal guests who will be joining us shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands to be joining us for the Micropayments Gateway launch. And this is, of course, a big moment. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this program, the initiative. The Micropayments Gateway is an initiative under the State Bank of Pakistan's National Payment System Strategy. This gateway is being developed in partnership with Karandaaz, Pakistan, and is funded by Melinda Gates Foundation. The aim is to facilitate every individual and merchant to make a payment in real time at a low cost and in a secure manner. So once again, it will be about digital payment system housed at the State Bank of Pakistan, enabled by the latest technology with components like shared directory services, the API-based architecture and transactions, designed on a latest standards of ISO 200-2020. This system will connect the banks and the non-banking financial institutions, creating true interoperability in the country. So it's going to be a milestone, and since we've been seeing the coverage of the royal visit so far, there have been several important meetings. The Queen yesterday had called upon the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and met with champions from our local society who've been trying to have an impact at the grassroots level. This includes, of course, people who've been working with the startup the community in Pakistan, as well as with making basic reforms in the education and the healthcare center. So today, as the signing ceremony will happen, it will mark a new chapter. And once the signing ceremony would be over, just to apprise you of the program later, we'd be following it up with a tea break. And of course, there will be the discussions and the panel discussions will follow. The day two, as we've already laid the foundation, is focused upon the small and medium-sized enterprises. I see Meher, our colleague from Karandaaz, here. So I believe that there is probably an update for me. So while we wait patiently, sometimes you wonder that this should all happen like clockwork and there are no awkward pauses and silences, but this one is rather a filler right now. We'd encourage conversations, but keeping the commotion in the hall to the minimal. So while we wait, perhaps it's a good idea to sort of recap what we discussed in day one. That one was focused mostly on the infrastructure development. And there were some very important and pertinent points made. Some of the panel discussions were very well received. And it spoke of the trends of this really fast trend of perhaps one of the fastest in the world of urbanization in Pakistan. So some of the procedures that we need to sort of rethink is how do you prepare for a future where the rural population sees more incentive towards moving to the urban networks, but is our urban infrastructure even ready to house them? Some very critical areas such as healthcare, the social capital, education, and also some basic amenities like even water and housing were discussed. So one needs to look at innovative interventions to make sure that happens. It was really heartening to also have Dr. Hafiz Sheikh and Mr. Asad Umar here, both representing the planning division, the planning ministry, as well as the finance ministry. And we had some key points discussed. For example, Dr. Hafiz Sheikh pointed to the fact that the export taxes at this point is zero. How do you actually connect it to the larger system is yet to be seen. And another very important point made was how technology is an equalizer and an enabler, but some of the solutions that they are providing via the SME sector or other innovative ideas, the startups, are like hybrid solutions. They're not really focused on a particular industry or a segment of society. So when you talk about the policy and the regulatory framework, you've got to need to sort of connect and come up with a hybrid. So even with infrastructure, it's not about just a highway there or a bridge one way. It's actually about seeing how the public-private partnership will come together and grasp the challenge of this very complicated scenario. So it was really endearing, and I think one of the highlights yesterday was Professor Yoshino's presentation about how the revenue model and the business model such Once again, we'd like to acknowledge all our partners who have made this forum happen. As you know, Karandaaz has partnered with the Asian Development Bank and the Asian Development Institute to make it happen. The work body in Pakistan has spanned over many years now, and some of the work that they have done is truly exemplary. We do have some of the videos. Would we like to play them at this point? No, we're just waiting a few more minutes. I do understand that while we wait very patiently, there is a tendency to, of course, get up, stretch your legs, and talk. I would strongly recommend that we refrain from that, and would really request you to please be seated. We are told that it would be a heads up of, say, 5 to 10 minutes at max, and that's when Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands will be joining us for this signing ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, as we see in this very venue, a wonderful, diverse gathering of stakeholders who come from very diverse backgrounds, it is also heartening to know how important the subject of innovative financing is for people. Inclusion and its related themes that should come to us very naturally. Somehow we need to find a way of formally structuring that into our regimes, into our policy frameworks and the regulatory environments. Somehow we feel the biases that we carry are most often subconscious or unconscious. We seldom realize that we belong to a certain strata, we belong to a certain orientation, and our perspective may be rather alien to those who are not from the same background. So it's really interesting to see how we are trying to become more cognizant of that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to kindly take your seats as our royal guest, Her Majesty the Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, has now arrived. May I request all our distinguished guests and participants to please be seated. Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, also the UN Secretary General Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development, is now amongst us, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Majesty Queen Maxima has been the UN Secretary General's Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development since 2009. In this capacity, she actively engaged worldwide in promoting access of individuals and enterprises in financial services at a reasonable cost. With the aim of improving economic and social development opportunities, she plans to discuss during this visit, and we've been seeing a lot of highlights, and she's had several meetings, the progress made on providing access to financial services with the aim of improving the financial lives of people in Pakistan. On the subject, if you ever to look up inclusive financing or financial inclusion, she is very popularly quoted to actually let people know that it is through this building it into the policy framework will you be able to allow the most vulnerable, underserved communities to escape poverty and the lack of choices. Once again, Her Majesty, we'd like to welcome you to this forum. This is day 2, focused entirely on the small and medium-sized enterprises. Ladies and gentlemen, to take this program further, may I once again request Mr. Hamad Azhar, the Honorable Federal Minister for Economic Affairs, to please welcome the royal guest.